welcome all of you in the last section of day 2 of this online FDP on earthquake safe design and construction practices. Today's this lecture will be delivered to you by Professor Dr. B.J. Shah sir. Sir has completed his BE Civil from Birla Vishwakarma Mahavidyalaya, Vallabh Vidyanagar. His ME Civil Computer Aided Structural Analysis and Design from LD College of Engineering and PhD in the area of Structural Engineering from Sardar Vallabhbhai Regional College of Engineering. Sir has vast teaching experience of 30 years as assistant professor, lecturer, associate professor, and professors in different colleges like LD College of Engineering, LE College Morbi, Gujarat Engineering College Modasa, and many more. At present, Sir is principal at Gujarat University, Gujarat Engineering College, Modasa. Sir has contributed in this technical field, pursuing many different important roles as just like he is author of the book on mechanics of solid published by Tata McGraw Hills. He is nominated as research supervisor of PhD program of Gujarat Technical University. Sir is also author of more than 30 technical papers in various technical journals and proceeded of conference and seminars. Sir has conducted and delivered many expert lectures in many different training programs. Sir is also involved in many consultancy projects of government and private sector. Sir has worked as expert in various committees in AICTE, GTU, other reputed universities, and Directorate of Technical Education and Education Department of Gujarat State for Technical Services. Sir has also worked as officer on special duty of ACPC and Fee Regulatory Committee and played a key role in transformation of online admission processes. Sir is expertise in various areas of the field, just like he's expert in analysis and design of structures, computational mechanics, finite element method, non-linear analysis, progressive collapse analysis, structural dynamics and earthquake engineering, optimization and artificial intelligence techniques, bridge engineering, and many more. So I would wholeheartedly invite Sir, Principal of Government Engineering College, Murasa, Dr. B.J. Shah, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So first of all, good afternoon to all the participants of this program. Today I have been given the topic to discuss about the ductile design and detailing of the reinforced concrete structures. As we all are knowing that earthquake, that events trigger at any time. It is occurring throughout the world, and we are not sure about when and where it is going to occur. In the last decade, we have experienced a many earthquake, and that gives a lot of lessons to all of us. So these lessons ultimately help us to make our structures safe and the habitable. So ductile detailing, design and detailing is basically that is a steps towards to make the safe and the serviceable structures. Let us discuss today this aspect in a more detail, that how we can make our structures, how we can design and detail our structures considering the effect of ductility, so that it can be a earthquake resistant structures. Ductility is one of the important parameters for the earthquake resistant structures, to make the resistant structures. So in this 1.5 hour session, we are going to discuss the main issues to achieve the ductile structures. So let with this opening note, I am going to share my presentation, and we will see in detail. So I'm going to share my desktop. So we are going to discuss about the ductile design and detailing of the reinforced concrete structures subjected to seismic force. When I'm talking, we are talking about earthquake force. Many of you might have see the earthquake. Many of you might have feel the earthquake. So immediately, some of the failures which are going to take place during the earthquake, that is come to the notice. Let us see some of the failures which are going to take place due to the earthquake. That will ultimately help us to have the idea that why and how the ductility is important for the structures. This is the picture, very common pictures of distress of the many distress during the many earthquake. It was a picture of 2001 Bhuj earthquake, and one can see here that this is because of such kind of a failure of the column. Column is going to crust at a point due to the improper confinement or the longitudinal reinforcement lead to the shear failure of the column during the earthquake. So this is because of the improper confinement. Let us have some more pictures. This is again having a similar kind of distress, but of course a little bit of different kind of things. And this is because of the inelastic deformation of the column due to the lack of the confinement. You can see here all the longitudinal bars are buckled because there is a less amount of confinement to the longitudinal reinforcement. Another pictures of the Kobe earthquake, where the reason were identified as an insufficient prematurely terminated longitudinal reinforcement and inadequate hoop reinforcement. See, the entire bridge is collapsed on the one side, and see the amount of the reinforcement which are visible here. This is because of the insufficient prematurely terminated longitudinal reinforcement. This is a very heavy structures. Of course, it was a bridge structures, and when the ductility is not taken care properly, the entire bridge is overturned. This is very common in majority of the reinforced concrete building, which is known as a short column effect. And this short column effect that will lead to failure of the column due to the captive effect. Again, very common type of a failure that is observed in the urban areas. And this is nothing but known as an open ground story. These are pictures of the 2001 Bhuj earthquake. And we can see that the upper story is that is stiffened by the brick masonry infill wall, and the lower story is a less stiffer. And because of that, there is a uneven distribution of the stiffness leads to the failure. The entire building was intact, and it is going to fail from the ground story. So, which is this is a very common type of the failures observed in the urban areas. Again, a very common type of the failures that is happen that is known as a diagonal tension failure of the brick masonry. Masonry immediately reflect if it is whenever the earthquake occurs. Such kind of a diagonal cracks are found in the masonry walls. In this way, the energy is released from this point. Again, failure of the building, Turkey earthquake, failure of the building due to the weak column, strong beam. We will see in detail there is a strong column weak beam theory and weak column strong beam theory is there. So basically to make the ductile structures, this kind of a configuration is not going to helpful. One has to go for a strong column and the weak beam instead of a weak column and strong beam. So this will lead to the disaster for such kind of problem. Again, we see the failure of the building due to the weak column and the strong beam. See, the beam are found to be strong compared to the column, and because of that, the failures are observed in the column. So this is the example of a weak column and the strong beam. We can see the basically the caption of one of the very what we can say the eminent person, Pohle and Priestley. Many of you might have also used a book of Pohle and Priestley. The observation of the building responses in the actual earthquakes indicated that the lack of the strength did not always result in failure, provided that the structural strength could be maintained without excessive degradation as inelastic deformations developed. The structures would survive earthquake. right? So if the structures force towards the inelastic deformation, perhaps the structures would survive the earthquake. It's a statement of one of the eminent structural engineers, earthquake engineers, Pole and Priestley. And because of this, based on the above statement, an attempt is made here to bring out the importance of ductility in the building during the earthquake. So let us say some of the design philosophy. It is economical to design the structures to behave in an elastic manner. It is uneconomical to design the structures to behave in an elastic manner to withstand the major earthquake. Why it is uneconomical? That we will see. So one has to go for inelastic behavior to get the economy in the design. The design should be done so that the structure should have sufficient strength, stiffness, and ductility. Moreover, most of the time we always concentrate over the strength and the stiffness. But for the earthquake resistant structures, the ductility is also an important parameter. There is an utter failure of the strength design philosophy during the earthquake. Essentially of adopting a capacity design to safeguard the building. So during the earthquake, we need to go for a capacity design philosophy theorem to safeguard the earthquake. In the strength here design, ultimate strength of the structural member assuming a failure condition, whether due to the crushing of concrete or due to the yielding of steel. Whereas in the capacity design, designing the element suitably for energy dissipations under the severe imposed inelastic deformation. So here we have to design the element that is suitable for energy dissipation under the severe imposed inelastic deformations. Certain location for energy locations are chosen and are designed for inelastic flexural strength and shear failure is inhibited by the suitable strength differential. You might have also experienced a simple example of this chain. This is a brittle chain, and how to make this brittle chain to behave in a ductile manner. So let us see this thing. So how to make this brittle chain to behave in a ductile manner? So you can see that by incorporating one simple element, one part of this chain, one small element that is to be ductile, we can make the entire chain to behave in a ductile manner. This ductile link stretches by yielding before the breaking. So before breaking, it goes for a extensive deformations, and then after it is going to fail. So the same concept which is used here to make this chain ductile, of course, it is to be made up of a brittle material, but though we make it this chain to behave in a ductile manner, by incorporating one ductile link, the structures or the chain becomes a ductile manner, behaves in a ductile manner. Same way, similar philosophy we need to be adopted into our structures, that some of the points where there is a possibility, we can incorporate such ductile link so that it can behave in a ductile manner. Capacity design, we accept a high risk of damage to the structures than the other extreme loads. Code suggests methodology to calculate the design earthquake force which are far lesser compared to the actual force that is happen. As all of you have experienced, all of you have seen how to during calculation of the seismic force on the building, we divided it by the response reduction factor, either 3 or 5. So we design it for a lesser force compared to the actual force that is to be there at the time of during the earthquake. Designers usually design the structures for design strength of material which are perhaps 15 to 20% lesser than that of the elastic strength. So this philosophy expects the structures to survive an earthquake by large inelastic deformation and energy dissipation corresponding to the material distress. It is observed that the lack of the strength against the actual earthquake force will not always result in failure, provided that the structural strength is maintained without excessive degradation with increase in the inelastic deformation. So this is a very important statement. This inelastic response has emerged as an important element or factor for the seismic design. We have to take care that during the major earthquake, the structure should move in the inelastic range, and that's way we can release the energy. Observations state that all inelastic modes of the deformations are not equally viable, while some leads to failure and some leads to perform the well because of the ductility. Inelastic deformation should never lead to the brittle failure of a building or the elements. Required strength of undesirable mode of inelastic deformations are to be amplified. Provided shear strength differential must exceeds the actual flexural strength to ensure that the inelastic shear deformations cannot be happen. So this is also one has to be very careful that shear strength differential must exceeds the actual flexural strength to ensure the inelastic shear deformations cannot be taken place. And bond failure impending to the brittle failure of the element needs to be avoided. So that is why in a capacity design sequence that is to be followed as it is. First is the beam flexor design, then beam shear design as per ductile detailing code, column flexor design, column transverse reinforcement design, then strength of the element at the beam column joint and beam column joint design. So code suggests various formula which then followed inhibits the undesirable inelastic modes of the deformations, that is shear and bond. These are the undesirable inelastic mode of the deformations. So ductility that plays a very important role and which can be defined as the ability of our structures to undergo inelastic deformations beyond the initial ill deformations without decreasing the capacity of the section, right? So one can go for undergo large inelastic deformation without decreasing the capacity of the sections. Ductility in the design of the RC members can be expressed with respect to displacement, curvature or rotation of the member. In the elastic response, see the oscillator. These oscillators, when we give an initial displacement, it will move towards one direction, let us say towards the left hand side. So when it will move, this is the force versus deformations diagram, lateral force versus lateral deflections. So this area OAB that represents the potential energy which is stored into the member when the maximum deflection occurs. When the body moves to the maximum point, maximum deflection occurs, the potential energy stored into the body, that is nothing but the area of this load deformation curve graph. This energy is converted into kinetic energy when the mass returns to the zero positions. So here the potential energy converted into the kinetic energy. Whereas in the elastoplastic response, here the oscillators that is forming a plastic hinge at a much lower response, see, compared to the elastic response, while deflection response continues along the CD. So the C point that will be at a much lower response, and then the deflection response that is continued towards point D, and going to the maximum displacement. The potential energy that is here is nothing but the area of load deformation curvature. So OCDE, these are the potential energy. When mass returns to the zero positions, this part of the potential energy converted into the kinetic energy. So this triangle portion, which is unshaded portion, this much potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, while remaining energy under the area that is dissipated by the plastic hinge in the form of a heat and the other form the energy which are irrecoverable. So in the response, evident that in the elastic response, the full potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, while in elastoplastic, a part of the energy is converted into the kinetic energy we have seen. So potential energy stored in the elastoplastic structures may not be equal to that of the elastic structures, and the maximum deflection of the elastoplastic structures may not be equal to that of the elastic structures. So the first figure that you can see here, it is the equal maximum deflection response, and this is the equal maximum potential energy response of the two structures. Whatever potential energy that is stored during the elastic response, right, same we can consider by the elastoplastic response by having a large amount of deformation, large amount of inelastic deformations. So let us now we move towards the ductility. We have seen that there are in general in the literature it is defined three types of ductility: displacement ductility, curvature ductility, and the rotational ductility. Displacement ductility is it is the measure of ductility of a structures. It is defined as the ratio of delta U by delta Y, where delta U are it is the lateral deflections at the end of the post elastic range. It is the ultimate displacement to the first yield displacement. So it is a ratio of ultimate to the yield displacement, and the value of this displacement ductility factor should be in the range of 3 to 5. Curvature ductility, same thing, same definition will be there. Instead of it is a displacement, we considered it is a curvature. So phi u and phi y, these are nothing but the curvature at the end of the post elastic range, and phi y is the first curvature at the first yield point of the steel. Here the curvature ductility factor is significantly different from the displacement ductility factor. At the start of yielding of the frame, the deformation concentrates at the position of the plastic hinge. Therefore, when a frame is deflected laterally in the post-elastic range, the ratio of phi u by phi y in the plastic hinge may be greater than delta u by delta y ratio. Third one is the rotational ductility. Again, it is the ratio of rotation theta at ultimate stage to the theta at yield stage. So it is a ratio. So ductility, there are three methods of defining the ductility. In general, it can be stated that the ductility is the ratio of absolute maximum deformations at the end of post-elastic range to the yield deformations. And accordingly, the ductility can be defined with respect to strain, rotation, curvature, deflections. Rotation and curvature based ductility factors take into account the shape and the size of the member. Though there is no special advantage of one or other definition, IS 13920 1993 has defined the curvature ductility only. What is the advantage of the ductility? A ductile reinforced concrete structures may take care of the overloading, reversal of the loading, impact, secondary stresses due to the differential settlement of the foundation. A ductile reinforced concrete structures gives the occupant sufficient time to vacate the structures a large deformations before it is finally collapsed. And hence there is a loss of life that is going to be minimized with the provision of sufficient ductility. Properly designed ductile joints are capable of resisting the force and deformation at the yielding of steel reinforcement, and therefore these sections can reach their respective moment capacity, which is one of the requirement in the design of reinforced concrete structures by the limit state method. So this is one of the essential criteria, assumptions in the limit state method, that the structure should be, the design should be such a way that the ductile behavior should be observed. And as all of you might have seen simple example of a frame subjected to gravity load. So when it is subjected to gravity load, the bottom is the bottom is the thing. Here is this is the deflections diagram due to the gravity load, and the deflected shape have shown some of the tension which is occurred on the face. So the red color which is shown here, these are nothing but the location of the tension that is occurred in the frame, reinforced concrete structures. Earthquake load is a vibratory kind of a load. There will be a to and fro motion, and so that when the force will take place in this direction, there is a sway towards left hand side, when the force is acting towards the right, there is a sway towards the right hand side. So it's a vibratory kind of a force. So the reversal of the stresses is going to take place during the earthquake. This gives the simple idea of bending moment diagram during the gravity load. So this is the case of the bending moment diagram during the gravity load, whereas this one is due to the earthquake when it acts towards left and when it acts towards the right. So this earthquake shaking, these are the reversal of the stresses that is going to take place in both the reinforced concrete frame members. See the type of failure, shear failure, when the shear force occurs and column shaking is towards the left hand side. The shear failure which is going to take place just very near to the support. So at the support here one can see that such kind of a diagonal cracks are to be found, and here also the diagonal cracks are found when it is there is a shaking in the different direction. So particularly these are the potential places where the cracks are found, diagonal cracks are found during the shear failure. In flexure failure, we can see that the cracks are also found in the tension phase. So these are the tension phase. So in the tension phase, the cracks are found near to the joints. So particularly these are again the potential place both for the flexure as well as the shear cracks. And so that we need to take care that here there is a possibility of formation of the plastic hinge, and this can be designed properly in the structures. So in the ductile frame design, the hysteretic loop should be stable and full. In the story mechanism, the column requires too much ductility, and it is very difficult to make the columns to be ductile, and hence it is to be avoided. Whereas in sway mechanism, it ensures the beam yield before the columns, and so that the strong column and weak beam design is to be adopted in the capacity design concept. So in a capacity design concept, one has to go for a strong column and the weak beam. We have seen some of the photographs that if the reverse of the things are there, weak column and strong beams are there, how the columns are subjected to a failure near the joint. Yeah, it may be fail either in the fracture or the shear, depends on whichever strength is found lesser, it is going to fail. So ductility, this can be increased in the sections by decreasing the percentage of the tension steel, by reducing the AST. We can invite the flexure, we can invite that the steel yield first, then the concrete, and we can go for, we can get the advantage of this inelastic deformation in the steel. Increase in the percentage of the compression reinforcement, we can achieve the ductility. Decrease in the tensile strength of the steel. Similarly, increase in the compressive strength of the concrete. Increase in the compression flange area in the flange beam, and increase in the transverse shear reinforcement. We can increase by increasing the transverse and the shear reinforcement, we can increase the confinement in the concrete, and the confined concrete is always having a higher strength than the unconfined concrete. So this is where by increasing the confinement, we can also increase the ductility of the section. There is a code for ductile design and detailing of the RC structures. The code of IS 13920 2016. So this code was earlier, it was 1993 edition. Recently it is revised 2016, and this code has to be the criteria given in this code. This we are going to discuss in the coming sessions. Ductile design and detailing of the reinforced concrete structures subjected to seismic force. So now onwards, we are going to discuss. We are giving more time to discuss some of the provisions of this code IS 13920 2016 to understand that how the detailing can be carried out so that we can make our structures ductile. All these provisions are given based on the experimental studies conducted by the various researchers, and it is to be put it here just to ensure that the ductility can be achieved in the structures. So let us see some of the general specification of IS 13920. The design and construction of RC building shall be governed by the provision of IS 456 except as modified by this code. Minimum grade of the structural concrete shall be M20, but M25 for the building more than 15 meter in height in the seismic zone 3, 4 and 5, but not less than that required by IS 456 based on the exposure condition. Steel reinforcement resisting the earthquake induced forces in the RC from members and the boundary elements of the RC structural wall that should comply this following criteria. The steel requirement reinforcement that is of the grade 415. Steel reinforcement used shall be of the grade 415 or less. Of grade FE 500 and 550, that is high strength deformed steel bars produced by TMT process, and just a minute. Hello. So yeah, is it visible? Hello.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Yeah, actually computer was discharged for a few minutes, so that is it.
Yeah.
So the steel reinforcement of grade 500 and 550, if it is being used, then there is a percentage elongation should be more than 14.5%, at least 14.5% it is to be there. Actual 0.2 percentage proof stress of the steel bar based on the tensile test must not exceed their characteristics 0.2 percentage proof strength by more than 20%. And the ratio of actual ultimate strength to the actual 0.2 percentage proof strength shall be at least 1.15. In the RC frame building, the lintel beam shall not be integrated to the column to avoid the short column effect. That we have seen that if the lintel reinforcements are extended to the column, possibly the column becomes a short column. So this can be avoided, but if it is integrated, then it should be taken care in the analytical model of the structural analysis. Same thing can be also used for the plinth beam or the staircase beam. If it is being inserted, then it should be considered into the analytical model, and accordingly its effect will be considered in the structural analysis. The reinforced concrete regular moment resisting frame shall have planar frame oriented along the two principal plan directions of the building. Irregularities listed in IS 1893 shall be avoided. This is one of the important part. Building with any of these listed irregularities perform poorly during the earthquake shaking. In addition, building with floating columns, setback columns, that is also perform poorly. So whatever irregularities are prescribed by IS 1893 part 1, as far as possible it can be avoided. Otherwise, the necessary treatment can be given. When such irregularities are adopted, detailed nonlinear analysis shall be performed to demonstrate that there is no threat to the loss of the life and the property. Requirement that is particularly for the beam design. These provisions are for the beam design. Basically, it can be treated when the factored axial compressive stress does not exceed 0.08 FCK. In the earlier code, it was a 0.1 FCK. Now it is being here reduced to 0.08 FCK. If then it can be treated as a beam. If the factored axial compressive stress exceeds 0.08 FCK, it shall be designed as per the beam column. The beam shall preferably have a width to depth ratio, that is a B by D ratio, width to depth ratio of more than 0.3. This needs to be ensured whenever we go for deciding the cross-sectional dimension of the member. Beam shall not have a width less than 200 mm. So again, you can see that many times we see that the column having beams are having a width of 150 mm, 6 inches are to be there. But this is not allowed in this code, ductile detailing code. Beam shall not have the depth D more than 1/4 of the clear span, right? L by 4. D should not be have more than 1/4 of the span. So this is basically just to avoid the deep beam. Beam is if it is more than 1/4 of the clear span, the beam will be more towards the deep beam, and behavior of the deep beam will be different than this beam, normal ordinary beam. So that is why it is avoided, and so that the D should not be more than 1/4 of the span. This is related to the width of the beam, particularly when there is a wider beam. So in these situations, the width of the beam shall not exceeds the width of the supporting member plus this thing. So this is applicable to basically a wider beam. In these situations, what should be the width of the beam to be considered for this? The longitudinal reinforcement, again, the longitudinal reinforcement in the beam, where beam shall have at least two 12 mm diameter bars at each top and bottom face. So one at each corner we need to provide. Minimum longitudinal steel, that is 0.4024 under root of FCK by FY. One has to provide at least this much minimum steel into the mass structures. Maximum longitudinal steel, that is 2.5%. So maximum reinforcement, again we cannot go for more because there is a congestion of the reinforcement will ultimately lead to the difficulty in pouring the concrete. Longitudinal steel on the bottom face of a beam framing into the column shall be at least half of the steel on the top face. So this is to be there, that longitudinal, particularly at the junction, there is always a hogging moment, tension at the top and compression at the bottom. So when we provide the steel, so steel at the bottom face of the beam, that should be at least half of the steel on the top face of the beam. Right? Similarly, there is also one more provision, that longitudinal steel in the beam at any section on the top or bottom face shall be at least 1/4 of the longitudinal steel provided at the top face of the beam at the face of the column. At any point, either top or bottom, the steel should not be less than 1/4 of the longitudinal steel provided at the top face of the beam. So these are some of the provisions to be taken care in the thing. Again, at the exterior joint, the top and bottom bars of the beam shall be provided with the anchorage length. So this anchorage length beyond the inner face of the column equal to the development length of the bar in tension plus 10 times the diameter of a bar minus the allowance for the 90-degree bend. So this must be at least the development length plus 10 times the diameter of bar minus the allowance for 90-degree bend. Splicing many times needed when the length of the beam will be larger than the length of
Vijay sir, your voice is not audible. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, please. Hello. Yes, please.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Just a minute.
हाँ. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just. Hello. Hello.
हाँ, बोलिए सर.
Hello.
हाँ सर, बोलिए.
Is it audible?
Yeah, audible. No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So splicing of the bars, longitudinal bars, many times we need when the length of bar available, when the length, what we can say, the length of the beam is more than the length of bar which is available. So in these situations, the spacing of this link shall not exceeds 150 mm, and lap length shall not be less than the development length. So lap length shall not be less than the development length of the largest longitudinal bar. The length shall not be provided. There are also certain rules to provide the lap splices. So it should not be provided within the joint. So within the joint, lapping is not allowed. Within a distance of 2D from the face of the column, again the lapping is not allowed. And within a quarter length of the beam, adjoining the locations where flexure yieldings may occur under the earthquake force. So at these places, the lap splice shall not be provided. And not more than 50% area of the steel bars on either top or bottom face shall be spliced at any section. At any sections, not more than 50% of the bars are going to left. Again, go for the certain devices like a mechanical coupler. A mechanical coupler shall be used when longitudinal bars have to be continued for a beam span. But whenever the couplers are being used, only those mechanical splices conforming to the code and capable of developing the specified tensile strength of the splice bar shall be permitted. And the spacing between the adjacent longitudinal bar shall be based on the outer size of the coupler to allow the easy flow of the concrete. So this has to be take care. Welded splice shall not be used in the beam for a distance equal to 2 times the depth of the member from the member face. Again, the welding is not much advisable in the column. It may be advisable in the beams, but not advisable in the column, because it leads to the brittleness, and anything which is leads to the brittleness does not to be used. So again, welding can be done. It can be done same way at any location. Not more than 50% of area of the steel bars can be done. Welding of links, ties, insert or other similar elements to the vertical bars required as per the design permitted in the seismic zone. So this is another important thing, that link, ties, insert, these are not permitted, that is in the seismic zone. The reason is that it leads to the brittleness, welding leads to the brittleness, and that is why it is not permitted. Transverse reinforcement, only vertical link shall be used in the beam, inclined link shall not be used. Right? Earlier code allowed the provision of the inclined link, but this code does not allow to go for the inclined link. And second thing, in a normal practice, this kind of a link provided with a 135-degree hook, and this hook is having the size of 60, minimum 60 or 6 times diameter, and again it shall be more than 65 mm. In the earlier code, it was a 10 times diameter and 75 mm. So this is a little bit reduced based on the recommendations of the other international codes like ACI and so that. Right? Normally 90-degree hooks are not allowed, because during the earthquake shaking it is easily going to open. But if the situations forced to go for the 90-degree link, it can be provided only on the one side, and alternate 90-degree hooks can be allowed. So when the longitudinal reinforcements are secured by the cross ties in the beam that have slab on one side, the 90-degree hook or the cross tie shall be placed on that side, right? So 135-degree hook with the size of 6 times the diameter of the bar, or but not less than 65 mm, are to be embedded into the core concrete. And that is also applicable to the cross tie. The minimum diameter of the link shall be 8 mm. 8 mm diameter to be. Transverse reinforcement is basically decided based on the design based on the shear force requirement, and that is why the shear capacity of the beam shall be more than the larger of the factored shear force as per the linear structural analysis, and the factored gravity shear force plus equilibrium shear force when the plastic hinges are formed at both ends of the beam. In the earthquake resistant design, a strong column and weak beam theory is to be adopted. So there is a possibilities of the plastic hinge formed at both the ends of the beam. So in this case, we can find out the design shear force, that is the result of the shear force due to the gravity plus equilibrium shear force that can be achieved, that can be there due to the sway towards the left or towards the right. So when the sway is towards the right, the moments, you can see the clockwise moment developed at both the end, and when sway towards the left, the anti-clockwise moment developed at both the ends. So in these situations, the design shear can be calculated at both the ends based on the direction of the shear that can be obtained from the equilibrium of the forces. So these formulas can be used to determine the shear force capacity of the beam. So transverse reinforcement, that is close of the link, spacing of the link over the length of 2D from the face of the column. That should not exceeds d by 4, then 8 times diameter of the smallest longitudinal bars or the 100 mm. So this way there is a closer face spacing near the face of the column at both the ends, at left as well as right end. And the first link shall be at a distance not exceeding 50 mm from the joint face. Closely spaced link shall be provided over the length of 2D on either side of the sections, where the flexural yielding may occur under the earthquake effect. And in the remaining length, the vertical link shall be provided at a spacing not exceeding d by 2. So in this zone, there is a closer spacing based on this criteria, and in the remaining length, one can go for a hoop spacing not greater than d by 2. So these are some of the provisions of the same code, but it was earlier. Many of the provisions are very similar. Some of the values are going to change. So I'm not going to discuss here in the detail. These are some of the provisions of the 1993 code. As we have seen, same thing, LD plus 10 times the diameter of the bars. So same thing is there. Again, the splice, similar kind of the specifications are there for the splice. Wave reinforcement, again 135-degree hook, but here it was a 10 times D and 75 mm, which is now reduced to 6 times D and 65 mm. This is again the same thing, only some of the nomenclatures are there and the same things are there. Let us see some of the provisions of the column. The requirement of the column that will be the axial compressive stress due to the gravity and earthquake effect exceeds 0.08 FCK. As we have seen that if the axial stress is below this 0.08 FCK, we can treat it as a beam and we can apply the provision of the beam. If it is more than this, then we can go for the column. So factored axial compressive stress considering all load combination relating to the seismic load shall be limited to 0.4 FCK in all such member is to be there. For various shape of the column other than rectangular, circular, T-shape, X-shape, etc., appropriate design and detailing shall be carried out by using a specialist literature. So this is applicable to only rectangular shape of the column, right? For rectangular and other than rectangular and circular, we have to go for refer specialist literature. The column shall not be less than the 20 times dB, 20 times dB, where dB is the diameter of the largest longitudinal reinforcement, or 300 mm. So minimum 300 mm diameter of the dimension of the minimum dimension of the column shall be the 20 times dB or 300 mm. The cross section aspect ratio. This is also this is nothing but the ratio of a larger to smaller dimension of the cross section of the column. So this cross section aspect ratio shall not be less than 0.45, right? So when we go for B and D, so cross section dimension aspect ratio shall not be less than 0.45. For vertical member of RC member whose cross section aspect ratio is less than 0.4, right, shall be designed as per the requirement of the section 9, which is basically a case of the distortional shear. So if the value is less than 0.4, cross section aspect ratio is less than 0.4, you need to apply the criteria of the distortional shear, right? So this is the minimum column width that can be done. Relative strength of beam and column. So there is the relative strength you can see in the figure. So summation of the moment should be greater than 1.4 times the summation of the moment in the beam. And similarly at corner also we can apply the same thing. Summation of the moment in the column should be more than 1.4 times the moment in case of the beam. So this is the relative strength of beam and column at the junction. The longitudinal reinforcement that is as it is circular column minimum 6 bars, splicing of the longitudinal bars. So left splice when adopted, closed link shall be provided over the entire length over which the longitudinal bars are to be spliced. And spacing of this link shall not exceed 100 mm. The lap length shall not be less than the development length of the largest longitudinal bar in tension. The lap splice shall be provided only in the central half of the clear column, because there is almost a possible there is a less moment or point of contraflexures that is to be somewhat in the middle range. Again, not more than 50% of the area of the steel shall be spliced, and lap splice shall not be used for bar diameter greater than 32 mm, for which the mechanical splicing shall be adopted. So ductile detailing is must for structures in zone 4 and 5. However, it should be followed in zone 3 when the importance factor is more than 1. Or structure is having a 5-story height, or structure is in the industrial zone. Factored axial stress under the seismic load. should be less than, if the factor axial stress is less than 0.1 FCK, ductile detailing are not required. These are all provisions we have discussed in the earlier. Link should be provided over the entire splice length, if should be spacing not spacing more than 6 inches, and 135-degree hook with a 6 times the extension, so 6 times the diameter of the bar. When the length of the column is more than 300 mm, the additional cross tie are also required to be provided. So these cross ties are provided, and when there is a overlapping of the hoop reinforcement, the cross ties will be provided. Spatial confining reinforcement is the one of the features of the ductile detailing. Wherever there is a possibilities of the potential hinge formation, there is a need to provide a spatial confining reinforcement. As we have discussed that by confining the concrete, we can get the higher strength. So that is why spatial confining reinforcement that should be provided in beam wherever in the beams and column, unless a large amount of transverse reinforcement is required from the shear consideration. Length of the spatial confining reinforcement should not be less than the maximum lateral dimension of the column, 1/6 of the clear column span, or 450 mm. Length of the spatial confining reinforcement shall be at least 300 mm in the foundation. Whenever we provide the bars in the foundation, there should be a confinement of at least 300 mm. And when the point of contrafracture is not within the middle half of the column, spatial confining reinforcement shall be provided throughout the column, right? Most of the time during the earthquake, there is a possibility that contrafractures, point of contrafractures would be there at the mid height of the column, center of the column. But if it is not there, spatial confining reinforcement should be provided throughout the length of the column. In case of column or shear wall discontinuities, there wherever there is a discontinuities shall be provided for the full height of the spatial confining reinforcement. And spatial confining reinforcement, these are some of the criteria for that. See, this is the sketch of the column. We can see that on the zone of the spatial confining reinforcement here. So this is the zone of the spatial confining reinforcement where we need to provide. And in the remaining area, the transverse reinforcement shall be provided as per the clause of the IS 13920. Okay. Confining reinforcement, confined joint within the beam framing, that is on the 4 sides, that is also there. So these are some of the design shear force in the column. In the column, we can find out the design shear force based on the moment, limiting moment that can be achieved by using the same formula. By the shear can be calculated. This is the projection reinforcement for the column with projection more than 100 mm. We can go for minimum longitudinal and the transverse steel as per IS 456. In the footing also, spatial confining reinforcement shall be provided for the height more than 300 mm. Let us have see some example, whatever things we have discussed in this code. See some of the calculation part that would give you more clarity. This is the beam design of RC frame in the seismic zone, plan dimension of 19 meter by 10 meter, seismic zone 5 on the medium soil, height less than 16.5, and no parking floor for this building. Very simple configuration is taken. See the column C1 C2, C1, all are the intermediate, these are the column C1. Similarly, here also column C1. So these are the column C1. These are column C2, corner column, and remaining all are the intermediate column. This so interior column. So these are the column C3. This elevation, I think, is very clear to all of us. So it is a, ground. It's a 5-story building. The column size after designing it is taken as C1, which we have seen. This is 300 by 500 mm. C2, these are 400 by 400. C3, all in a intermediate column, 400 by 500. These are the plinth beam, floor beam, and the top beam. So these are the beam size to be taken: 300 by 600, 500, 400, and 350. Slab thickness is taken as 125 mm. The loading in the roof. So as it is, the dead load and live loads can be calculated in a traditional way, the way we calculate, whether it is a trapezoidal or triangle distribution. That can be achieved, calculated. So grade of the concrete, some of the features, M20, Fe415, live load 1.5 kN, that is on the roof. And on the floor 3 kilonewton per meter square. Roof finish, floor finish, brick wall, density, and all the things are taken. A load combination, that is as per IS 456, regular buildings are there, so that is why there are 13 combinations to be taken for the dead load, live load, and earthquake load. In appropriate partial safety factor is taken. Let us, we are going for the ductile designing of this beam ABC. So after this analysis into any software, the beam AB, the force resultant for the various load cases and the load combinations, after having a different load cases and load combinations, at left hand, centered, and right hand, the value of the shear force moment, that is to be listed here for dead load, for live load, and earthquake, that is considered in the Y direction. So these are the summary of the forces which we have obtained after the analysis. And again, after the load combination, at the left hand and right hand, that is listed, and out of that the value which is found to be critical for the design, that is put it here just by the dark and the underline. So the shear force, similarly moment here, similarly at the center shear and moment, and at the right hand shear and the moments, so which are listed here. These are just after the linear analysis. After the linear analysis that we have done. Now let us go for various checks. That first thing is the axial force. Of course, here the axial force, because there is a very less amount of axial force, that is why, of course, some value might be there, but it is a very less value, so that is why it is less than point. Of course, this example is to be solved as per IS 13920/1993. So some relevant modifications are there here. Instead of 0.1 FCK, it is 0.08 FCK. So this value has to compare with 0.08 FCK. And if it is less than that, then it can be designed as a flexure member. The member size, we have taken the width of the beam is 300 mm. Again, it is more than 200 mm as prescribed in the code. So it is okay. And B by D ratio, that is also B is 300 mm. So this we found to be 0.5, which is again more than 0.3 as per the code. So you have to also proportionate the cross-sectional dimension to match this value. The span by depth, this dimension, again the depth should not be more than 1/4. So that is 1/4 of the span. So that is why here L by D is calculated, and this value is found to be 8.33, which is more than 4. So this is satisfied as per the criteria of this. So this criteria remain as it is in the new code. Moderate exposure condition, effective depth, the minimum amount of reinforcement 0.24 root FCK upon Fy. So this leads to 415 Newton per 415 mm square, and maximum reinforcement, that is 2.5%. So this will comes to be a 3990 mm square. So this is the minimum and maximum amount of reinforcement that is permitted in this code. Let us start with the hogging moment. So maximum moment, as we have seen in the summary table, it was a 369 kilonewton meter. So based on this thing, first of all, we determine the reinforcement. It is as it is based on this limit state philosophy by using IS SP16 or whatever way is there that you can do. Here it is found to be a doubly reinforced beam, and hence the percentage of reinforcement AST and ASC, that is found to be 1.46% and 0.54%, right? So 1.46% AST, that will leads to a 2330 mm square. So which is again will be in between the minimum and maximum reinforcement criteria. Similarly, at the bottom, there should be a 50% reinforcement, right? So when we go for the 50% of the reinforcement, it is found to be, because we have a 1.46%. So 1.46% by 2, so 0.73%. And so that here we have a more than this 0.54%. So otherwise, in a normal design, we were going to provide a 0.54% reinforcement at the bottom based on the doubly reinforced criteria. But because here the ductile detailing criteria is adopted, we have to provide at least 50% of the AST, that is in the bottom face. Similarly, for sagging moment, let us this is to be designed as a T-beam, and based on the T-beam philosophy theory, we can get the amount of reinforcement, that is AST, is to be a 1512 mm square. So again, it will be the between the minimum and maximum, and one must ensure that ASC, there is no need to provide ASC because the T-beam is there, so we are getting a large amount of compression, so there is no need to provide any compression reinforcement. But we need to provide at least that is a 50% of the AST. So the 50% of the AST needs to be provided at the top, because at the mid span the tension face will be the bottom, so ASC will be need to provide it at the top. So in these situations, we are getting the requirement of the reinforcement. At top reinforcement, larger of this, so we are going to provide this one, and at the bottom, the larger of this, so we are going to provide this much reinforcement. This we are going to provide. Same thing is reflected here in the form of a table, just to give you a more clarity. So this is the hogging moment. So hogging moment, and at the left end, at the right end, we can find out mu by bd square, we can find out AST, we can find out ASC, and just see that if the ASC is less than 50%, at least provide the 50% reinforcement on the compression phase. So this needs to be increased here as per IS 13920. Similarly, bottom reinforcement. So a sagging moment at the center, we have the AST that is to be provided. So bottom reinforcements are provided here. And again, one has to careful that at any section, the reinforcement shall not be less than 1/4 of the reinforcement that is to be provided at the top face of the at the top near the face, okay, face of the or junction. So in all the situations, this is say that this is the 1/4 criteria is applicable here, and so that accordingly we need to provide the reinforcement 0.37%, because here the reinforcements are less than 1/4 of the reinforcement, so that is why we need to provide. And finally, we can summarize this reinforcement at top and bottom, at the left face, at the center, and at the right face. So these are the summary of reinforcements at the end of this. And accordingly, we are providing some bars straight. So in the top, we are providing a 316 bars, that is the straight bars, and others are the extra bars. So these are the extra bars. So wherever we need, we provide extra bars. Similarly, in bottom, 16 bars are provided, that is straight bars. So these are the straight bars, and remaining will be provided in the form of a extra bar, just to take care of the amount of reinforcement required at all the junctions. And in this way, we can ensure the percentage of the reinforcement provided. Again, we need to ensure here that particularly at the junction, at the end phase, we need to provide a anchorage of the reinforcement. So sufficient anchorage, development length LD should be 47.5 plus 10.5 minus the that is for the 90-degree bend, there is a reduction. So we need to provide at least a 49.5. So it is a 980 mm for 20 dia bar and 784 for the 16 mm dia bar. So this much amount of anchorage we need to provide. So this is for the flexure. Same thing we need to carry it out for the design shear strength for the concrete. As these are the tensile steel which is provided, so based on that you can find out permissible design shear stress, tau c, and based on that design shear strength of the concrete, tau c BD, this can be provided. So design shear strength of the concrete at the center and right end, that is evaluated. So accordingly, we can find out. So this beam shear strength due to the plastic hinge formation. So plastic hinge formation at the end of the beam, considering there is a plastic hinge. So the value of moment, mu h hogging moment, based on the percentage of the reinforcement, we determine the hogging moment. This is nothing but the plastic moment. So this is the limiting moment capacity of the. So limiting moment capacity of the beam is determined, and based on that we can find out similarly at the left end as well as at the right end. These are limiting capacity at the center. Similarly, the right end of the beam, so we find out the limiting capacity, and the shear is modified, or equilibrium shear, when sway to right and sway to left, the equilibrium shear is calculated. Then after it is merged with the gravity shear, shear due to the gravity load, that is due to the dead load and live load. So dead load and live load, and then this gravity shear will be added with the equilibrium shear. So we are getting the shear at left end and right end for the sway at left, and this similarly for the sway at right. So this is basically the shear diagram, that is shear force due to the dead load, due to the live load, and due to the sway to right, and this is shear due sway to the left, right? So when there is a sway towards right and when there is a sway toward left, we found the shear diagram that will give us the value of shear force. So here, as per 13920, the design shear force that can be resisted shall be maximum of the calculated shear force as per the analysis and the shear force due to the formation of the plastic hinge at both the end of the beam plus factored gravity loads on the span. So accordingly, the design shear force Vu that is calculated for the analysis, and this value, the required capacity is 145 kilonewton, Vu minus Vc, so 145 kilonewton. So we can find out at the right end and the mid span, and by using this clause we can find out minimum shear criteria. So based on the shear requirement, we can find out the spacing of the stirrups, and the spacing of the stirrups that is over a length of 2d at the either end of the beam as per the clause shall be a least of d by 4 and 8 times the diameter of the smallest bar. So this way we can find out that it should not be less than 100 mm. Okay. And in the remaining length, we can provide the stirrups that is of the 165 mm. So this way the detailing is placed here. Some of the bars as we have provided straight 316 torque, and these are the extra bars. Similarly, this is the detailing which is provided here, right? This is the cross section AA. Cross section AA is at this place. Cross section BB is the right face, and cross section CC is the mid span. So covering all the ductile detailing criteria here, you can see that the transverse spacing that is we are getting here 8 torque 125 mm, 125 mm that we are getting because of this ductile detailing provision, whereas in the remaining length 165 mm spacings are there. So this way the same thing can be carried out with different options. Here it is with our IS 456, but considering the response reduction factor 5, right? The same thing is to be analyzed, and just compare that if we are not providing the ductile detailing, but I am considering the response reduction factor 5. So how much values are there? And third thing is the reinforcement detail of the beam that is again as per IS 456, but the response reduction factor is 3, because basically in zone 2 and zone 2 there is no need to go for sometimes the ductile detailing. So at that time we can go for the response reduction factor 3. So in all the way, the finally summary that we are getting is somewhat like this, that if we are going for the ductile detailing as per IS 13920, detailing as per IS 456 but taking the response reduction factor that is 5, and detailing as per IS 456 but taking the response reduction factor is 3. Somewhat the amount of steel which we are getting that is longitudinal, transverse, and total is 120, 107. And here I think we are getting a very drastic value naturally, because most of the time when we are taking the special moment resisting frame, there is a provision to consider the response reduction factor of 5, and the ductile detailing are special moment resisting frame. The ductile detailing is a must. So in these situations, I think there will be a very less changes, whereas here there is a large changes are found. So same way again as the time is very near to end, I will not show you this thing, but the same exercise is carried out for zone 2. And in the similar way, the entire things are seen, even ductile detailing is provided in zone 2 also. And finally, the uh, comparison is the interesting part for us. So let us have all the same three different issues I've discussed. But here is the case of zone 2, where earlier it was the case of zone 4, right? So in zone 2, I think we are getting the total steel with ductile detailing and total steel with response reduction factor R is equal to 3. We do not found much difference, right? So as the code prescribed in zone 2, there is no need to go for ductile detailing, is almost appropriate and in this way. So with this thing, let us summarize the today's section. Actually, the code is giving you a detailed criteria of a beam column joint, shear walls, and all other things. But it's not possible to cover within this half an hour. So I have tried to minimize the thing just to understand the philosophy of this ductile detailing, why there is a need of this ductile detailing, and what to be ensure, so that we have discussed. So in inelastic shear deformation which leads to the collapse shall be avoided by providing the suitable strength differential. This is the thing. Ductile design or capacity design is a necessity to be practiced to avoid any collapse of the building. That is very essential to have the collapse. And ductile design and detailing cost more than the ordinary detailing, which is a misnomer. Right? We have seen in both the exercise. I think if you consider the earthquake force, if you do not consider the earthquake force and design for the gravity force only, then there is no. But if you design the structures for the earthquake force, I think there is no much increase in the cost by adopting the ductile design criteria. So with this thing, I have tried my level best to cover the ductile designing philosophy and the criteria which is given in IS 13920. And now if you have some, because the code, the new code has given a lot of new provisions for the shear wall beam column joints. So that was not there in the earlier code. This is described here, but still again the code is going to be continuously evolved because as we learn from the different earthquake, we can get more and more new things, right? So with this thing, I thank you for Professor Sanghvi to give me opportunity to share some of the things of the ductile detailing with all of you. Right? So thank you, LD College of Engineering, and thank you, Professor Sanghvi. I think I have tried to remain with the.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful, and thank you very much, Vijay sir. It was really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Before we end the session, I think we will take the questions and answers from the participants. If they have any questions, please. Participants are requested to interact with the. Are requested to interact with the experts. Please, if you have any questions. Hello. I request Professor Bansal to unmute participants.
It is already unmuted, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, sir,
Sir, I
please.
wanted to ask sir, while we were calculating the story shear, there is a factor of 1.4 which is multiplied with the
Yeah. While determining the story shear,
summation of moments
basically,
and
yeah.
so in that
Because
1 point.
because basically, for considering the story shear, we consider the limiting section of the plastic section. Basically, it is a plastic hinge that is formed there. And in these situations, normally we considered the stresses in the steel, that is 0.87 Fy, whereas considering this plastic effect into there, we consider the factor, the stresses in the steel, that is 1.25 into Fy instead of 0.87 Fy. So that is why we consider there the 1.4 factor, right? If you see the, if you find out the commentary, you will find that the stresses is taken because of the plastic hinge which is formed there. We assuming that it is a plastic section. So instead of considering a 0.87 Fy, which we consider in the elastic stage, stresses in the steel, here we need to consider a 1.25 into Fy, and hence the factor 1.4 is there.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, any more question, please? Yes, participants are requested if they have any questions.
Yes, sir, I have a question. Sir, this is Bendra Pal Singh from Dehradun. Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, as earlier you told that the reinforcement of the lintel beam shall not be extended to the column because it results in a short
Yeah.
column.
Yeah.
But sir, I have worked before the teaching. I have worked in Government of India, Ministry of Defence. There the provision was for this lintel beam must be extended to column, because the philosophy was that as a framed structure there should be the complete frame, there should be no discontinuity. Even the reinforcement of the lintel beam and plinth beam all are passed through the column. So just this is the point of again.
Yeah. See, the
Yes,
thing
sir.
is, if the lintel beam, if you inserted the reinforcement of the lintel beam to a column, I think there is
Ji,
no
sir.
difference between the regular floor beam and the lintel beam, right? So in
Yes,
these
sir.
situations, the code says that there is nothing wrong in it that, but you should consider the effect of the lintel beam also into the analysis. Most of the time, what we are doing, we are not considering, we consider that the reinforcement inserted, right? But we do not consider it effect in the structural analysis. So code
Right.
says that whenever you will do, you have to consider the effect in the structural analysis, right?
Right,
So
sir.
this
This
is
must
the
be a
point.
time.
Yeah, this is the point to be noted.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, during the construction, we provide the plats for the plats in column. That after that finishing the column, we take it out and to embed this masonry to have a good joint with the shear wall. So, is this safest practice or not? Mild steel plats are provided and linked with the reinforcement. That
Yeah.
yeah.
See,
And
somewhere
this type of
in experimental studies, somewhere it is made that mild steel plates are just to be embedded. It is embedded with the reinforcement.
yes, sir.
It is allowed. I think it can be done. There won't be any trouble. Right? Code
Right,
has not mentioned, but it is a practice to be used at other places. Right?
right, right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
This
sir.
is okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, please. Anyone else? I think no more questions. So I think if there is no more questions, then we end the session. I'm very much thankful to Dr. Vijay Shah and for this excellent presentation and accepting our invitation to deliver a session on ductile design and detailing of structures. Your presentation is really lucid, and I think yeah, in-depth calculation is also taken care at the end. So which is quite useful to the participants, and I think they will be benefited by this session. Thank you very much, sir. And I want to share with the participant that Professor Vijay Shah, being a principal, so busy, he's accepted the invitation immediately once it is conveyed, and he is not only the expert of structural engineering, means on the buildings. He is the expert of bridge engineering, bridge designing also, and we will take his advantage of the knowledge maybe in the coming short-term courses. Thank you, sir, for
Thank
your
you.
nice and lucid presentation. Thank you very much, sir.